Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to episode number 60 of the Unboxing AI webinar series. Very excited to have our good friend Hari Trivedi here with us today. But before we get into Hari and all the amazing things he does and plans to do, in case you don't know, once again, this is the Unboxing AI webinar series every Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern. Today, I happen to actually be in that time zone. So every Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern, you will find me talking to one of Carpel's friends, collaborators, partners, customers, getting their thoughts and ideas on everything AI, non-AI, why not AI as well. And in case you don't know what Carpel is, well, we are your friendly neighborhood AI platform, uh, bridging the gap between this complicated world of amazing AI applications from all over the world and your clinical workflows, bringing them into a single user interface, single integration channel, and single procurement channel. So, with that, thank you, Hari, for joining us today. It is truly an honor. I know that we've been talking for a while. It would be fantastic to get your thoughts on this stuff. So yeah,
Yeah,
but
thanks for having me.
before I allow you to speak, quick intro. So Hari is an associate professor of radiology, biomedical informatics, and emergency medicine at Emory in Atlanta. He co-directs the very famous and well-respected HITI Lab, the Health Innovation and Translational Informatics Lab at Emory. He's also a medical director for AI at Hopper, which I'm sure we're all very curious to hear about. Um, and primarily, also it directs the AI Council at Emory, which decides what AI goes in, etc. His work focuses on large-scale dataset curation and clinical translation of AI. Um, and nationally, he served as the chair of the RSNA Radiology AI Data Standards Committee and works with several companies as well. Thank you, Hari, for doing this. Means the world. Uh, so yeah, so as is customary in these webinars, uh, you know, how do you describe what you do to a 5-year-old?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I would say the easiest way to describe it is to help build and validate or make sure that something is working well. Build and validate AI models in radiology. My biggest focus is in breast imaging for breast cancer. But by extension of that, we work on making data sets available to build models, validate models. We work on techniques for curating that data, taking real world messy data and harmonizing it for these use cases. And then I also work with companies to help drive adoption of their models and think about how models should be used in clinical care.
No 5-year-old is going to understand that, Hari.
It's a tough one.
No, I understand. But tell me a little bit more about the specific roles that you play. Like you wear a lot of hats. Uh, I
Yeah.
If you can rank order them, that would be cool.
Yeah.
But
If
if not,
I can't rank order them because I'll make somebody upset, but I can give them to you in no specific order. Um, First and foremost, in 2019, myself and Dr. Judy Gachoya started the HITI Lab at Emory with a focus on healthcare innovation and translation. The T in HITI is translational informatics. That's a big one here because I think what we have seen in the past near decade is lots and lots of great models being created in healthcare AI and radiology AI, but sort of this less than enthusiastic response and uptake of those models. So we really focus on how to get those models translated into clinical care and how to make sure those models are working well for various populations. That's a big focus of what we do. So in the lab, I would say the two main things I focus on are, large data set extraction, curation, harmonization, and then using that data to build our own internal models, validate external models, retrain models, and give real insight into how those models perform across various subgroups. And that doesn't mean just demographics like race, age, ethnicity, and gender, but also things like various types of findings. In the breast cancer world, no two breast cancers look alike, and there's various features present on images even within cancers. Obviously, there's subtypes. There's invasive cancers, non-invasive cancers. So the this concept that a finding is a binary thing, whether it's presence or absent, like cancer, no cancer, or hemorrhage, no hemorrhage, PE, pulmonary embolism, no pulmonary embolism. That's a little bit too simplistic, and so we're working on sort of trying to peel that onion a little bit and understand better how the models are performing on various subtypes, so that we can better inform radiologists, the best way to use these models, and inform companies on how to build better versions of the model. So that takes a big chunk of my time, which I love to do. We've got a great team of students and postdocs and engineers. Um, Aside from that, at Emory, I serve as the chair of the Radiology AI Council, where we brought together a team of 18 people from every subspecialty in radiology and revenue cycle management and business administration to try and create a rubric, which we just published in JACR a few weeks ago, that breaks down sort of systematically how we consider, how we thought about AI models for deployment, and not just their performance, but their integration, where results are stored and saved and captured, medical legal concerns, financial concerns, safety, all of, very holistic approach. Um, and then the third thing, I suppose, inside of Emory is directing the AI image extraction core here. So we actually have built our own in-house pipelines to pull imaging data at scale, and now we make that service available across all the hospital systems in Emory, including Grady, which is our county hospital, and the adjacent children's hospital. So, um, yeah, it's a really sort of multifaceted, fun role here. And then, last but not least, outside of Emory, in March of this year, I joined Hopper as medical director for AI. With them, I am working on very similar stuff. It dovetails really nicely. Um, Hopper's platform is designed to create a foundation model, have a foundation model that external users can access and make their own variations of that foundation model to make use case for use cases that they want to design. And so instead of, you know, taking 2 years and $2 million and 2 million exams to train your model end to end, you can kind of, the theory is you may be able to do that much faster. So in that role, help with clinical guidance on various use cases. Again, working very heavily in mammography and data sets. So a lot there, but hopefully that gives a good overview.
No, that's incredible. And apart from this, Hari, do you do like routine clinical work as well? Or
Yeah, I am. Yeah, it's funny. I completely forgot to mention that. So I am trained in musculoskeletal radiology. I did a fellowship in that, but I began practicing in emergency radiology when I joined Emory in 2019. So I do maintain a pretty small clinical footprint now, but I do still practice um, uh, routinely.
nice, nice. So, so we were talking about this prior to the call that uh, you know it seems like so now the FDA has hit like that 1,000 AI model threshold in terms of models approved for radiology. Uh, and still, there is this massive gap in the adoption of these models. What, according to you, Hari, are like the three main reasons why that happens, right? And what are some solutions uh, to those problems?
Yeah, that's a great question. I I really resonate with that dilemma, right? Radiology AI has been around now for about a decade, sort of in its current form. Obviously, previous versions have been around for longer. Um, but there's this pretty big chasm between the volume of models being developed and their quality, some of which, you know, rote performance is actually quite good and they could be useful. And this level of adoption. There's like this huge gap there. Part of it, I think one of the difficulties is just at least in the US, I can say healthcare AI sales cycle or healthcare software sales cycle or any purchase acquisition. You have these very long sales cycles in hospital systems. It can be 2 years, easily 2 years between when a solution is first considered and when it gets approved, and then when it gets put into the budget and then finally deployed. So that is part of it, and that is sort of a nature of the beast of the way U.S. healthcare systems work. That can be tricky to sort of overcome, and the underpinning reasons for that are, and this is what we discovered a lot by creating this radiology AI council and going through and thinking through what things matter to us in a health system for AI model deployment is there truly are a lot of stakeholders, and that can be like a throwaway statement sometimes, but in this context, I don't think it is. Um, for example, you have models that don't affect just one group of radiologists. So if you deploy a chest CT model, the cardiothoracic division is using those, the emergency division is reading those, any community division is reading those. So because there is no perfect model solution, getting everybody to agree on which is the best model or which one has the best amount, the best compromise between all the use cases is important. So I think that's one challenge. Even if you get everybody to agree, there's a challenge of finding the budget and then finding time for IT to do the integration and build it. And so there's this sort of like decision making problems and then sort of the actual mechanistic implementation challenges. The second is that, I would say that even the best radiology AI software out there, and I don't mean model, I mean software, the whole package, still leaves much to be desired in terms of workflow and implementation. And part of this is unavoidable because it requires integration with other software systems that are also very complex, perhaps outdated, perhaps modular, right? So if you want an AI system, you have an AI model, you have to get it to work across 10 different PACS vendors and multiple different EHRs, and then potential multiple reporting systems. And if that AI software needs to pull in information, clinical information from the EHR, even if it's minimal, like a patient age, a gender, something like that, that adds another layer of complexity. So you have these like sort of stepwise barriers um, to making good tight clinical integration into workflow in a way that RADs like. And then I think the third part of it is um, that unfortunately, what's good for one radiologist and something that one radiologist loves is something that another radiologist may not like at all, right? So you have a profession in which you've got a large group of, highly intelligent people and highly driven and motivated people that have opinions on the way things can be done and what they're used to practicing, whether it's for the last 5 years or the last 25 years. And I think that like trying to get one common agreement between those groups of people is just an intrinsically difficult thing to do. People have different practice patterns, different ways they like to see things, different ways they read cases, different ways they dictate cases. And the irony to me a little bit is that the promise of radiology AI is to make our jobs more efficient, help us read more quickly, be safer, miss fewer things. Um, but because radiologists in this day and age are so busy, reading sometimes 200 cases on a given shift, the tolerance for any slight deviation in what they're used to is very, very low. So the bar is like that much higher because they have absolutely no threshold for something that takes them away from clinical work or distracts them or slows them down by even a couple of seconds. So I see those as our major potential challenges. I think that underpinning all of that, there are some challenges in models that are reported to perform well, but maybe in practice don't perform as well as maybe their FDA clearance metrics suggests. But I do think that there are plenty of good models out there that do reach their performance for relatively straightforward things, and that is not the core issue sort of underlying the gap.
Thanks for articulating it so beautifully, Hari. I think uh, very well put. The one thought that keeps coming, internally, at least a couple as we talk about adoption is, do you also see lack of trust as a problem, or lack of trust? Maybe one step further would be deterioration of trust, right? Like you start using an AI model, and as you use it, you see a blunder, right? And then you're like, oh my God, like, how can I trust this? Have you seen that in your experience? I know that you've deployed a couple of models. Do you see that happen at all?
Absolutely. We have concretely seen some of our rate. We have three AI models deployed in clinical care now: pulmonary embolism detection, incidental pulmonary embolism detection on abdominal CTs, and intracranial hemorrhage detection. And we have radiologists that switch off the solution completely. Just switch it off. They don't like it. It's typically due to false positives, but I do get reports weekly of false negatives. We do track it and we monitor that, and we're doing our own subgroup evaluation to try and understand in which cases the model is performing well and in which cases it's failing again, because ground truth is not binary. So it matters a lot if a hemorrhage model detects a small hemorrhage that could be missed by the radiologist. That's the ones you want it to find and be really good at, versus detecting a big intraparenchymal hemorrhage that's obvious to a radiologist. You don't really necessarily need AI for that, right? And so, um, absolutely, there is this sort of skepticism from the get-go, but I have also seen rads that truly, began using the model and then they don't see value in it in their clinical care. Now, whether that's justified or not is a completely different story, but they have completely turned it off. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Oh, that's super scary. So, but no, let's take a couple of questions. Hari. There's one that's coming from Abhishek. So Abhishek leads AI integrations at CARPL. He asks, congrats on the new model launch from Hopper. Given the immense compute demands of fine-tuning and deploying large multimodal foundational models in radiology, how do you approach the trade-off between clinical performance and cloud costs?
That is a good question. I would defer on that. That's not really my domain. I mean, obviously, there is compute cost involved in fine-tuning a model. At inference time, obviously, those compute costs would be smaller. Um, but, you know, if you ask me philosophically, compute will get better, compute will get faster, right? The real value of a foundation model, and it will get cheaper, right? And the real value of the foundation model is, not having to amass hundreds of thousands of cases and train a CNN from scratch and build everything from the ground up, with your domain experts and your ML engineers and everything else, and really just be able to do that in one place and fine tune a model that already has a very good baseline understanding. And whether this is not a plug for Hopper, whether that's Hopper's foundation model or somebody else's foundation model, but that's sort of the promise, right? The compute and the requirements for that, that's kind of, I will defer on that, but I agree that that's a completely valid concern about compute and energy requirements.
No, but I think you put it very well, Hari, because uh, you know, at the end of the day, if you calculate the overall cost of first extracting a million scans from, say 10 different PAC systems, putting all of that on the cloud, or on a GPU box or whatever, then running the actual models and then fine tuning the models, certainly it seems that at least from an end model perspective, having a so-called foundational model which you can give 200 scans to, and then get a similar output should be more energy efficient and more cost efficient in the long run. So I think that's an interesting way of looking at it. I had not actually thought of that. Uh, the
I think
next is a
the
question
other
from BS. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
I was going to say the only other tiny part I would add to that is the part that matters in practical application is the ability to run inference in real time, right? There's some things that you can get a result 5, 10, 15 minutes later, even at the end of the day, and it may not matter, right? Like a screening mammogram, they get read in batches. And there's other things where you want inference to be, within a minute. And so, there is that sort of, but the nice thing with cloud infrastructure is you scale up and down as you need it. So, unless a single exam is taking 30 minutes for inference, in general, you should theoretically be okay from a clinical practicality standpoint.
Yeah, so makes total sense. And just like we also try to have this framework of hybrid deployments where if you need super fast inferencing, just put a box on ground and don't even take the data all the way to the cloud. It's just
Right.
you'll infer in the amount of time it takes you to send the data. So
Yeah.
cool. Next up is a question from DS. They ask which subspecialty of radiology has minimal exposure to use of AI in your experience, in your decade of work, yeah, which is the least
That
impacted.
is that's easy. Pediatrics. Pediatrics is suffering from a very unfortunate, um, just complete lack of AI solutions. Nuclear medicine is probably a close second, I think. Um, the challenge in pediatrics is just simply that the volume of cases, the availability of scans for training, the the variation in pathology in those use cases, the wide range of ages, right? Like we consider all adults 18 and older, their imaging to look fairly similar for the most part, right? And that generally holds true with some exceptions. Um, but in pediatrics, a 2 week old and a 2 day old and a 2 month old and a 2 year old and a 14-year old is very, very, very different, right? And because the way the models are trained right now requires, a large volume of data for training, and the model needs a ton of samples to train. um, it makes it difficult to train models for pediatric use cases. And then the other side of the coin is just from a business perspective, right? The market size, and I mean this, I'm speaking purely from an objective standpoint, right? I mean, I wish it wasn't this way, but also from a market size, the volume of pediatric cases is lower. Pediatric hospitals are lower, pediatric radiologists are lower in number. And so for a company to pursue that as a business use case is also more difficult, right? Because you can't necessarily charge 10x more, even if it costs you 10x more to build a pediatric model. So that's the big challenge that I see. There is potential that foundation models can help with that, right? Because they have some baseline understanding of an MRI or CT, and then fine tuning for a pediatric use case could happen that much more easily.
Yeah, I think it's one of those cases where if ever a pediatric hospital reaches out to us, we're just like, oh my god, what do we provide to them? And the other is of course nuclear medicine. I totally agree. Like, why is there no PET CT sequential analysis AI tool that does, like, I don't know, automated resist calculators? Like, it's just such a such a mystery to me. why why these don't exist? Okay, we
Yeah.
have rainfall of questions happening. So the next one is: do you have any guidance for the timeline for pre-deployment validation, and what metrics should definitely be measured to confidently go for clinical deployment?
That's it's almost too broad of a question to answer, right? I mean, the timeline
I think
is,
your paper probably answers it.
yeah. I mean, do you mean, I guess, well, I can't ask, but let's assume that the timeline for pre-deployment validation means like a shadow validation, a shadow deployment in an institution of an existing model. Usually like 3 months shadow deployment. I apologize if I'm misinterpreting the question, but yeah, like a 3 month shadow deployment in an institution is generally enough time to get a good sense of how well a model is working. The metrics you want to look at are kind of the standard machine learning metrics that you would imagine, like F1 score AUC, sense spec, but the ones that are often overlooked and the ones that the radiologists tend to notice the most are things like PPV, TPR, true positive rate, false negative rate, right? Those are the ones that the rads are messaging me about because that's what they see. They see how often is the model when it predicts hemorrhage, how often is it correct? Or when there is an hemorrhage, how often is the model missing it? So there's a little bit of gap there. But those are the ones those are the main ones I would look at. And then the other thing I would add to that is as much as possible, if you are doing a shadow deployment, try to break the performance down into subgroups to give you insight, right? So look at performance, and this is just tabular data in the EHR. With a little bit of work, it should be accessible. Look at the performance by gender, look at the performance by age, look at the performance by patient class. Is it an inpatient, outpatient, or ED patient? Look at it by race, ethnicity, and which hospital. You know, if you've got 20 hospitals in your system, try to break it down, because that top line performance metric of AUC of whatever, F1 score of whatever, will mask so many nuances and variations in your model performance that are really, really clinically important. So that's like, I think that's sort of what's bubbling to the surface for us, is that you, no matter what top level performance you get, you have to dig a little bit deeper and try and understand what's going on underneath.
And to add to it all, and just the complexity of it, this is just classification, right? If you
Yeah,
start going
that's
into
just, yeah,
segmentation, super resolution, report generation, like stuff like spine MR, report generation, etc., which is so many numbers, how do you even keep up? So definitely an active area of research also, I think. And we had two questions on this same topic. Next is from Ridhima. Ridhima asks, do you think there is a gap between what radiology AI solutions provide versus what radiologists actually want from these solutions? Are the solutions even solving the right problems? I think that's a very good question. Yeah.
yeah. I would say yes and no. There, there's not a huge chasm, I think, between what solutions are being provided and what is needed in the market, in the sense that the there are not a lot of AI companies now chasing down use cases that are irrelevant. Like most good AI companies have done that homework and done found a good product market fit, right? This ICH, hemorrhage is important, PE is important, cancer is important, but the gap exists in the deployment. So yes, if you look at the model and what the model is tackling, yes, there's like a good fit. People are making models for things that are important, but the way, either the performance of that model across various subgroups, or the way that model is deployed, or the way the user interacts with the model, or whatever, there are big gaps there, which is exactly the reason why we have, limited uptake.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. And lastly, and we are almost at time, so this is a great last question. This is from Gaurav. How do you see radiology evolving in the next 15 to 20 years? Will scanners get smaller? Will scanning be more proactive than reactive? Will reporting become real time, automated, whatever? Like, what's the grand
Yeah.
outcome that we can all aspire for?
Well, let me go get my crystal ball over here and tell you, right? So, um, I I think a few things. So 15, 20 years is so hard, right? Because with all the advances in AI, and talk about artificial, I mean, like true gen AGI, right? General artificial intelligence. It's really tough to say. I will be a little bit more concrete that I think in the next 5 years, we will see solutions that will fully automate the reads of certain types of cases, right? Chest x-rays, negative, like maybe specifically negative chest x-rays, negative mammograms, negative head CTs. There will be a class of exams that get read completely automatically. The next thing that we'll see is probably wide scale preliminary report generation, right? That generates prelim reports for certain types of exams, and really sort of can get you most of the way there, like a decent resident would, and then you're sort of making modifications. And then beyond that, I think the challenge that we have in healthcare is that, to truly make a fully automated end-to-end solution that doesn't need a radiologist and doesn't need anything. I mean, maybe eventually we'll get there, vis-a-vis, AGI, but the data still exists in silos, right? And what you really need to accomplish that would be massive high quality data which is very expensive and tough to come by, massive compute, also expensive and tough to come by, and then some sort of agreement on what is acceptable performance, because inter-reader agreement for any given exam in radiology can be 50%, 70%, 90%. And so, what is the threshold for AI being as good as a human when two humans don't agree on the same thing? So those are the things. I mean, I think at a top level, like I'm not worried about our profession going away. I'm not
I
worried
think
that,
that is
it'll be obsolete.
very well said. And with that, thank you, Hari. We try to always end on time. But
Yeah,
thank you so much, and to everybody who joined. See you next time, same time next
great.
week. Yeah. Bye,
Thanks so
bye, Hari.
much.
Take
Take
care.
care. Bye bye.
Bye.